Why would a reclusive millionaire in rural Texas invite a young waitress to care for his disabled son? And why, just weeks later, can't he stop watching the security cameras? Did she do something underhanded? Or did she touch the deepest part of both father's and child's hearts? This isn't just a story about a single dad and a nanny. It's a journey of healing, love, and an unexpected second chance. Are you ready to uncover the secret behind that door? All right, dear viewers, if this story resonates with you, please hit like and subscribe. And don't forget to comment below, letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is. It's wonderful to connect with all of you from around the world. Grayson Miles was once a titan of the business world, a cold, razor-sharp investor whose every decision left others wary. But it all collapsed after the accident 3 years ago. The beloved wife he adored died, and his only son, Mason, survived but lost the ability to walk. From a vivacious child, Mason withdrew into himself, almost vanishing within his own home. He did not speak, did not cry, did not rebel. He simply allowed no one in. Countless nannies came and went, some credentialed, some experienced, some recommended by top agencies, but none lasted more than a few days. Mason did not drive them away. He merely sat in silence, turned his back, and kept an unbreakable distance. Grayson grew accustomed to this. He continued hiring help out of duty, but deep down he no longer believed anyone could change anything. He built protective walls around his son, yet in doing so he trapped himself within them. Life beyond those walls seemed to belong to someone else. One afternoon, Grayson stopped at a small diner for coffee. Nothing remarkable, until he saw her. A young woman at the far end of the counter, wiping tables, Harper Ray. Not strikingly beautiful, not dressed elaborately, but something in her eyes made him pause. An unusual calm. Not cold, not timid. Only peace. In a moment almost without thought, Grayson asked if she'd ever been a nanny. Harper looked up, neither surprised nor questioning why, and when he told her about his son and the job he needed filled, she merely nodded. No further questions asked. She agreed. A few days later, Harper appeared at his gate, carrying only a small backpack. No documents, no resume. Yet when she stepped through the door, the entire atmosphere shifted. Not because she was extraordinary, but because she showed no fear. Grayson led her to Mason's room. The door was ajar. The boy sat on the edge of his bed, his back to the window. Harper entered without knocking. She did not greet him, nor force a smile. She did not move close or sit beside him. She simply pulled in a small chair, placed it a few steps away, and sat down. The space between them was silence so dense it felt suffocating, but Harper did not try to shatter it. She sat quietly for a moment, then began to speak, not fairy tales, not advice, only a memory of a game she once played with her little brother, small details, but vivid. Mason did not respond. He remained still, his shoulders tensing. He did not turn, did not answer, but Harper did not give up. When her story ended, she rose and quietly left the room. Grayson watched everything on the security monitor. He did not intervene, nor did he harbor much hope. But what caught his attention was, Mason did not turn his back as he always had. He did not retreat into darkness as with the others. He simply sat there, silent yet unguarded. And that night, for the first time in months, Grayson did not feel the usual heaviness watching the screen. A woman had stepped into their lives without fanfare and stayed. He did not know where this would lead, but he realized something had begun. Day after day, Harper came with no expectations and no demands. She brought no hollow encouragements, no progress charts like those before her. She arrived with her presence, honest, punctual, and without pressure. Each morning she entered Mason's room in a slow, practiced way. The boy still sat motionless, his small shoulders folded in as if to vanish into the space. Harper did not approach, nor did she attempt to break the distance. She simply sat in the same chair, a few steps from the bed. In her hands, she often held a well-worn book with a bookmarked page, or a small rubber ball in a soothing shade of blue. The air in the room remained thick, yet Harper did not fight it. She allowed the silence to flow as part of their meeting, as though she understood the weight of the quiet Mason wrestled with each day. Once settled, Harper began to speak. She told little tales, with no beginning and no end. Snippets of childhood memories she'd gathered like pebbles by the roadside. The time she and her brother rolled a ball across old tiles. The day the two of them built a spaceship from a cardboard box. Or the sheer joy of winning her first lollipop after a doctor's appointment. These stories were not lessons, they were gifts to share. After each story, she placed the soft ball at the foot of Mason's bed. No invitation, no requirement. She simply left it there. A small note reading, "If you want to play, you may begin whenever you're ready." During the first 3 days, the ball stayed untouched. Mason neither moved it nor glanced at it. He simply sat there, eyes fixed on the floor. But Harper felt no disappointment. She continued to come, continued to tell her tales, and continued to leave the ball, then quietly departed. She knew that to coax a child who had locked his heart shut, one cannot force an opening. Only a steadfast presence could act as a tiny light, tapping into the darkest corners until the boy was ready to reveal himself. On the 4th day, when Harper entered as usual, the first thing she noticed was that the ball had moved, just a little, barely enough to show it was not in its old spot. She paused. For a few seconds, the air seemed to hold its breath. Mason did not look at her. He remained sitting, silent, but Harper knew he had somehow touched that ball. She said nothing. She offered no comment, no needless cheer. She only smiled, a soft smile like a breeze conveying, "That is enough." Then she sat down as always and resumed the story she had left unfinished yesterday. Nothing changed about how she was present, but in her heart, something bloomed. Quietly, full of hope. Upstairs, Grayson sat in his office, his eyes glued to the security monitor. He had come to check those cameras every day, not out of suspicion, but because it was the only way he could watch his son without disturbing him. That day, he saw Mason lean to one side, a tiny movement, but for someone who had remained still for months, it felt like a revolution. And when the ball rolled ever so slightly across the floor, as if nudged by a gentle force, Grayson's heart clenched. Then he witnessed the unexpected. Mason gave a faint smile, not broad, not long-lasting, but enough for Grayson to know the feeling was real, a subtle curve at the corner of his lips, a sign of life, something he thought his son had lost. Grayson leaned back in his chair, as if he had just witnessed a miracle. No doctor could have coaxed that. No therapist had come close. All the money, all the effort, all the experts, they had failed. Harper had no special technique. She offered no lectures. She never demanded change of Mason. She did not teach. She only reached out, gently, sincerely, and long enough for a child's heart to begin to believe that the world had not abandoned him entirely. And for Grayson, nothing could replace that. Grayson was not one to trust easily, especially when it came to his son, a child who had already endured too much, and he could not allow just anyone to step in and then walk away, leaving fresh scars. Harper was doing what dozens of experts, doctors, and therapists could not. Yet that very fact made Grayson wary. Who was she? How could an ordinary waitress reach the deepest part of a child who had once been so desperate he locked his heart away? One late night, after Mason was asleep, Grayson sat alone in his office. The computer screen's glow played over his thoughtful face. He typed Harper Ray into the internal search system, then scoured university records, medical files, even dusty posts on old forums. After hours of patient digging, a familiar name appeared. Harper Ray, once an outstanding physical therapy student at UCLA, with top grades and a full scholarship for advanced research. But in her final year, she abruptly dropped out. No explanation, no warning, no trace left except a brief status update. No longer a fit. Grayson leaned back in his chair, stunned. He didn't know whether the feeling rising in him was suspicion, curiosity, or something like regret for her. The next morning, as Harper prepared to leave after Mason's session, Grayson called her to a stop. No anger, no chill, just a long silence before he asked, "Why did you leave UCLA?" Harper paused, her hand tightening on her bag strap. She met his gaze without flinching, though a complex emotion flickered there. After a few seconds, she answered, her voice steady, as if recalling a long dormant memory. "My younger brother Jonah had Duchenne muscular dystrophy," she began. "From a young age, I knew he wouldn't live long, but I wouldn't accept it. I studied physical therapy not just for passion. I believed that if I became skilled enough, I could help him walk, gain a few more years, or at least not exist like a shadow." Her voice faltered. "I tried everything, but the disease progressed faster than any prediction. Jonah weakened day by day. Some nights when I came home early to practice with him, there was only the silence of watching him sleep. Then one day, he didn't wake up." Harper looked up. For the first time, her eyes held a hollow void Grayson had never expected. "After his funeral, I couldn't return to school. I looked at anatomy models, leafed through stacks of papers, and realized it no longer meant anything to me. I felt I had failed, unworthy of that field." She inhaled deeply, her shoulders trembling. "I walked away, did odd jobs, tried to forget, but I couldn't, until you walked into that diner and told me your son wouldn't let anyone near him. In Mason's eyes, I saw Jonah. I accepted this job not because I thought I was better than anyone else. I did it because I could not bear the thought of another child being abandoned in loneliness like my brother." Grayson was silent. How long had it been since he'd heard someone speak not for fame, not for credentials, not for pay? Everyone who came to Mason had a reason: duty, career, pity. But Harper, she came simply because she had known loss, and because she refused to let another child endure it. He looked at the woman before him, not just a waitress anymore, but a heart once shattered, now using its fragments to heal another. For the first time, Grayson felt no suspicion, only gratitude, and something like reverence. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or sip some water, then stay tuned for the surprising twists ahead. And please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always wonderful to see friends from around the world joining us. Comment 1 if you enjoyed this story so we can continue bringing you more great tales. That afternoon, the light in the house seemed to soften, not because of the weather, but from the silence that enveloped two adults standing on opposite sides of a child long accustomed to being forgotten. Harper set her toy bag on the table, slipped off her worn sneakers. She glanced at Grayson seated not far away, eyes fixed on his tablet screen, his expression as though he'd never known his son's world. Then, without fanfare or detour, she asked, "When was the last time you truly played with Mason?" Her question fell like a thin thread, yet it drew back a heavy curtain shrouding Grayson's heart. He said nothing, neither looking at her nor at his son sitting silently in the corner, only a rigid stillness as if his most hidden place had been touched. Harper waited for no answer. She knew that sometimes silence itself is the greatest acknowledgement. Without asking permission, she gently removed a plastic bowling set from her bag. The colorful pins light and child-safe, but just enough to tumble with a satisfying crash. She placed each one carefully on the living room floor, as if building an invisible bridge between two people fate had driven to opposite ends of the world. Grayson looked up at the faint clatter of plastic. The sight held him in place. Harper placed the soft ball by the pins, then turned to Mason. He sat in his wheelchair, hands resting on his lap, eyes quietly observing his new toys. "Shall we play around?" she said softly, addressing neither father nor son, with no pressure, only a gentle invitation, as light as breath. Mason did not answer, but he did not turn away. Grayson, still in his suit and tightly knotted tie, rose and sat down across from his son. For the first time, not to soothe him, not to receive a therapist's report, but simply to sit, like an ordinary man. A father invited into his son's world. An hour passed. Harper did not grow impatient. She simply sat beside them, occasionally straightening a pin. She told a few childhood stories, of playing plastic bowling with her brother Jonah. The tales held no climax, only warmth. And then the ball moved. No one saw clearly how Mason had shifted his hand, nor whether it was deliberate or accidental. But the ball rolled, slowly at first, then gathering speed, then clack! A pin toppled. Harper sprang up, not in a shout, but her eyes shone with joy as if to embrace the room. "Yeah! Mason just beat my record!" she cheered, her voice airy yet warm to the heart. Surprised, Mason laughed, not loudly but unmistakably, a vibrant, bright sound breaking years of silence. And then Grayson smiled. He didn't know why. He didn't even realize what he was doing. But in that fleeting moment, his shoulders relaxed, his face lost its chill, and the distance vanished, leaving only a father who had witnessed his son laugh for the first time since the accident. That smile did not come from strategy, nor a billion-dollar deal, nor the grand achievements he once pursued. It came from a gently rolling plastic ball, a small laugh, and a woman brave enough to step into the darkest corner of his life to kindle a light he himself had long forgotten. Harper said nothing more. She simply stood, silent, as if not wishing to shatter the miracle unfolding. Grayson looked at his son, then at the woman beside him, and for the first time in a very long while, he felt alive. Harper froze in the hallway when she caught Grayson's voice through the crack of his office door. His tone was low, serious, laced with a worry she'd never heard before. "We need the best. A top rehabilitation specialist from Dallas. Cost doesn't matter. We just need results." She stood, stunned. Every word in that call cut into her heart like a slow, merciless blade. No anger, no bitterness, only a profound, bone-deep ache. In that moment, Harper understood. Her role was over. She held no formal credentials. She'd never signed a contract, yet her heart had poured itself into Mason's care as a mother, a friend, a silent guardian. And now, just as trust was blossoming, she realized she remained only a temporary presence in their father and son journey. Grayson wasn't wrong. He was simply seeking the best for his son. But it drove home for Harper how the distance between them had never truly closed, despite the recent smiles that had given her hope. She couldn't sleep a wink that night. She sat by Mason's bed, watching him sleep, his small hand still cradling the soft ball, the first toy that had coaxed a laugh from him. She wondered, would he forget her as quickly as she'd arrived? Could a true specialist heal not only his body, but his soul? The next morning, Grayson descended to the kitchen and found a folded note on the counter beside the tiny badge Harper had once pinned to her apron, engraved with "Spread Kindness." He opened the note, a resignation letter, brief and sincere, with no accusations, yet enough to unsettle his heart. He rushed to Mason's room, as if afraid to miss something vital, but Harper was gone. Mason sat on his bed, his face turned to the wall. He said nothing. He cried not, yet his small shoulders shook like a leaf in the autumn breeze. "I don't understand." Mason's voice trembled. "She was my family. Why did she leave?" Grayson stood there, speechless. In that moment, the man who had negotiated billion-dollar deals felt more powerless than ever, facing the broken gaze of his son. He realized Harper was no specialist, but she had done what no expert could. She'd given Mason the unconditional love he so desperately needed, a gift no credential could train. Mason buried his face in the pillow, his quiet sobs piercing Grayson's soul like needles. Grayson didn't know what to do, but he sat beside him, his hand resting on Mason's shoulder, for the first time touching his son with all the emotion he truly felt. Harper had gone, but the void she left behind could not be filled by any professional profile or therapeutic technique. And in that moment, Grayson understood. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from degrees or reputation. It comes from presence, from the quiet minutes brimming with true care, from a woman who carried her own pain and chose to stay for the sake of a child's eyes. Yet now, she was gone, taking with her a piece of Mason no one else could ever replace. Grayson stood silently before the door of the small apartment where Harper lived. In his hand was a heavy envelope, not from the weight of papers inside, but from all the unspoken things it carried. Within lay the degree Harper had never received. No one knew, but he had quietly handled every detail, contacting UCLA, re-enrolling her, convincing them to honor her previous grades and credit the missing courses. This was more than a certificate. It was a debt of gratitude. Recognition for all Harper had sacrificed, not once but twice in her life. When Harper opened the door and saw him, she was surprised, not by his presence, but by the profound silence in his eyes. A man accustomed to controlling everything, now hesitant like a boy offering his first apology. "I know you never got this," Grayson said, opening the envelope and holding the diploma before her. "You gave up your dream for your brother, then again for my son. I won't let you give up on yourself a third time." Harper took it, her hands trembling. She stared at her name clearly printed on the paper as memories flooded back. Sleepless nights studying beside Jonah's hospital bed. Mornings balancing clinical rotations and breakfast for her little brother. And the fateful day Jonah passed away, and everything collapsed around her. A tear fell. Not from regret, but from gratitude. For someone who saw the things she tried to hide and honored them as an essential part of her. Someone who not only knew how to receive, but how to give. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, her voice catching. Grayson said nothing. He only nodded gently as if to say, "No thanks needed for what I should have done long ago." Weeks later, on a warm, golden afternoon, the three of them sat in the backyard, the small garden where Mason often read and watched the trees. Harper set out a few simple activity toys, then placed Mason's hands on his standing frame. He had practiced for weeks, inching forward each time, buoyed by Harper's tireless patience. And then, as if the world paused, Mason let go of Harper's hands and slowly stood up. His legs trembled, knees wobbling, yet his gaze held unshakable determination. He looked straight ahead, as though seeing a new sky. Harper held her breath. She dared not move, fearing that even a whispered word might shatter this fragile moment. But Mason remained upright, alone for the first time, needing no support, only his will. She rushed forward and embraced him, tears streaming down her face. These were not the tears of a nanny, but of a sister who had once failed to keep her own brother alive, now witnessing another child reclaim life with each step. Grayson stepped forward too, standing quietly beside them. He was no longer the powerful businessman, but a father moved beyond words. He knelt, reached into his vest pocket, and produced a small red velvet box. Harper turned to him, eyes wide, not yet understanding. He opened the box. Inside lay a slender ring, sparkling modestly. "Let us be a family, not only for Mason, but for ourselves." Harper was speechless. She didn't reply at once, but her eyes once shattered by grief, now glistened with new belief. She nodded, gently, without words. In the blazing Texas sunset, three people, each bearing their own wounds, held hands. No one was perfect, but their imperfection had created something beautiful. A family. No certificate needed, no titles required, only them, and the tentative, hopeful steps forward. Some wounds cannot be seen with the naked eye. They lie deep within the soul, aching silently through the years. But sometimes all it takes is one person, patient enough, sincere enough, brave enough to step into our lives, for everything to change. Harper was not a doctor, bore no fame, had nothing but a heart once shattered. Yet she was the one who brought a boy back to his smile and a father back to his most sacred role, the guide for his son's heart. Their story is not about miracles. It is proof of a simple truth. Love need not be perfect, only genuine. Presence at the right moment, an understanding glance, an unconditional embrace. Sometimes these mean more than any therapy technique. Harper not only healed Mason but helped Grayson rediscover himself. A man once lost in numbers, now finding meaning in his son's laughter and in the unspoken love of a quiet woman. And you, if there is someone out there feeling tired, thinking you are not good enough, not strong enough, remember that sometimes, as long as you have a caring heart, you are enough to make a difference in someone's life. You may not save the whole world, but you can save one person. And to them, that is everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe so we can share more moving journeys like this. Comment below with your thoughts, or share this story with loved ones and friends in the U.S., and we'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you, because you too are part of this journey of spreading love.